Now, I'll let you into a little story about how I first come into contact with Tony Judge. Years and years ago, when I was around Lee Glover, Pancake Taylor, Vic Morley, Mikey Wright, people like this, Pancake and I had a graft in Aberdeen, Scotland. And what they was doing is they were getting the parcels off Tony Judge. You know, they were getting multiple kilo parcels off Tony Judge to distribute around the city and send up north to Scotland. Well, they used this one lad called Lynchy, not to do with the big family of Lynches, but he was called Fingers. They give him a nickname called Fingers. And anyway, and Paul Hornby, he's another kid from Walton that used to go up the road for them. So anyway, I weren't as deep into it. I had my own little thing going on around Scotland Road, but I weren't into, you know, the big consignments that James Taylor, Glover, and all them people were into. But they had this Fingers going up and down the road once every 2 weeks. He was taking like ecstasy, cannabis, and heroin up the road, right? So what they used to do years ago, mate, they used to go up the road, rent a caravan site out, you know, rent a caravan on a caravan site up there, put all in there, and then Fingers would stay in a local hotel. So what's happened on this one occasion, I'm telling you this because this is how I first met Tony Judge. So on this one occasion, he's gone up the road with this parcel. I think it was something like 8 kilograms of heroin, loads of cannabis, loads of ecstasy. They've put them in the caravan, and what Fingers has done is took the heroin away from the caravan and then rang police on the caravan. So when police have swarmed on the caravan, they've got all the cannabis, they've got all the ecstasy. And then what he said to Pancake and that is, they've coughed for everything. Now, what they normally ask for is we need some proof but because he weren't arrested at the scene, there was no proof, so he got a bit of a walkover, and he was trusted again, and then he went up the second time, and he pulled the same trick. Now, I was aware at this point of what had gone on the first time, and now I'm aware because I'm around them. Due to the violence that we were committing, they were sort of pulling us on board due to the level of violence we could use. So he's done that again, and I'm there, and they're looking on, just saying, "Oh, it's happened again," blah blah blah. But this time the paper reported it, and there was no mention of heroin, but there was mention of the ecstasy and the cannabis and so on and so forth. So they were just going to. You know, give them another walkover, give them a slap and say, get back up the road, because no one else wanted to do it for them. So I'm there and I'm thinking, are you really going to let this kid off with this again? Do you know how many other people are going to start taking the piss out of him if he's continued to let individuals like this Fingers do this type? So, you know, it was actually some of my boys were there waiting for him to come and have a meet. They had a block of flats on Sylvester Street. And in the block of flats, you had 3 floors. And one of the lads, Jamie, used to live at the top. And then the other floors were empty. In the middle floor, you had about 6 firearms. Because at that time, they were having James Taylor, and that was having the 051, you know, the Lynches and the Pancakes and the Richardsons war. That was ongoing. And that's where they based all the firearms in that flat there. And facing that flat was an empty flat, and the flat was hatched to cough for Fingers and, you know, ask him where the swag was and get where the money was and stuff like this. So a couple of my friends were waiting for him as he's coming in, and as he's coming the bottom, Pancake Taylor and that have led him up this first flight of stairs, you know, to go towards Jamie's flat, which was on floor 3. One of the boys has come behind him, grabbed him round the neck, chickened him, put him asleep, dragged him into the flat on floor 2. In that flat, it was empty. The windows had been covered with black sheeting, and there was a CD player in there. And what they've done is, obviously, the people who they got the swag off, namely Tony Judge, was going a bit sick on them, so they had to try and get their money back. And when they realised they weren't going to get the parcel back, and Tony Judge weren't very happy, So basically, this Fingers is being dragged into this flat. He's being stripped naked. He's being placed into a German torture stance. Do you know what that is?
No.
Basically, they tie you at the wrists behind your back, and then they tie your ankles and your wrists together, so you're stuck in that position. That's a German torture stance. He was in that position for about 6 or 7 hours, and they went to work with him with aluminium baseball bats and wooden baseball bats, and to drown us screaming out, they put the music on in the flats, you know, loads of music on, so the music was dead loud. So they drowned them out like that. But on that particular occasion where Fingers was getting tortured, Glover and Pancake decided to get their main man down to show their main man what they were doing to try and get that money back. Do you understand what I mean?
Sure.
So that's the first time I ever seen Tony Judge. And when he's entered that flat, he's himself and screamed at them, "What are you doing bringing me here?" and left the building sharpish. Fingers was wrapped up in a curtain, naked. He was put into the back of an estate car. He was driven along County Road, and on County Road there's a McDonald's, and he was kicked out in his knack. He was in hospital for months and months and months recovering from his injuries. But that's the first time I ever seen Tony Judge. And at that time, he was just some long-haired kid who was just on the money. He weren't really into the violence. And I think the worst thing he could have done, really, was start to participate in the activities of Pancake Taylor and that, who were obviously bang on at that moment due to what they were doing towards the police. And, you know, when you mentioned earlier on the 051 car bomb and stuff like this.
Yeah, you can't declare war on the law enforcement and the government because they've always got more guns.
So let's touch on Tony Judge then. Obviously, the majority, well, not a minority of us within the city of Liverpool would have been well aware of Tony Judge due to his activities with Glennon Senior and Glennon Junior, to be honest. There was a time when Tony Judge went on his toes for 2 years for money laundering, but he was so pivotal. He was so pivotal in the, you know, in the setup that he couldn't go to jail because the setup had fallen to pieces because he was responsible for looking after so much within the organisation. So he went on his toes for years, come back, got arrested, went to custody for a couple of years and come out. He then started dating a girl called Rebecca Riley, a young girl from off our estate who had a boyfriend at the time called Terence Palin, and there was a bit of and ahhing between them two, and he came to light there. And Rebecca Riley lived on our estate, and she had done all her life. And when I've got out of custody, that's the first time I realised that he's with Rebecca Riley and he's always on our estate every single day, Tony Judge. And he was nice as pie. He knew me from before I went to prison. And he could see, you know, he knew what was going on with me behind the scenes in the sense of people wanted to kill me. And it came to light that he was the one that passed the young gunmen, the firearms that had took responsible for the hit up on my life on the 17th of March in 2018, ordered by the Kinahans. So when we're speaking about Tony Judge, do you know anything insightful about him other than he's currently in custody now?
The only thing that I would say would be there would be a possibility that if he's facing 30 years or something like that.
No, he's been sentenced, I think, to 14 years on the back of the EncroChat. But right. in 2018, I believe he and many other criminals got word that was coming down because he shifted himself to Dubai.
Yeah, and the thing is that there will be all kinds of deals being offered with regards to Kinahans, and it's the first person who stands up and agrees to cooperate. Now, that could be Johnny Morrissey. It could be Tony Judge. Well, they will get very good treatment because the Americans are involved, you see. And also you've got people like Lee Edel as well. He's in Portugal. And in 2018 or something, around that time, he was caught with 240 million pounds worth of cocaine and in Dubai right, was arrested, and then mysteriously the charges disappeared, and he flew out the country alongside 2 MI6 agents and became an MI6 asset. And he currently is in Portugal, and that is where Dillian White went to train before last April's fight against Tyson Fury at Wembley. He went over to Portugal and was training with Lee Edel and his wife. They're very, very close friends. But he still comes backwards and forwards, Lee Edel, but he's got the protection of the security services. I mean that's according to my intelligence, Darren. You may know something different.
Well, I didn't know he'd been allegedly become an agent with the authorities. That's news to me, other than what you said about it. So I'm not too aware of that. I am aware. I am aware of the fact that he's got a very high profile gunman in the city of Liverpool putting people to bed by the name of Chungi. I'm aware of that.
Is that Liam?
Yeah. So when you're speaking about the let's call him the speak firm, Colin Smith, and everyone around the city has always believed it was Lee Edel last shot, and when in reality it was his brother, who looks very similar to him.
And that is why I love listening to you, Darren, because you can clarify things that research everywhere else that you can't find it. You see, that's why you are a veteran and you've got more information to be able to glue it all together. I've got all the pieces, and you come along and you glue it all together, and you go, "Oh, now we can see the whole picture."
Well, with me, mate, I've took a very strong position against these organised crime groups, and I get labelled everything under the sun, but the whole purpose of me speaking about this is to let the parents and the families of Liverpool understand exactly what these gangster families and career criminal families are doing to our environment while they lap it up in sun-drenched, places around the world, sending firearms. And these firearms, as you say, allegedly through the hands of this Birchie, who I think someone mentioned earlier on, when you've got a picture of Thomas Cashman, it's like an iconic picture of him. And in this picture, you've got his little fat face, and in the background, you've got Ferraris and all these different types of cars. And is that Birchie's showroom, do you think?
I think it is. But I know that Craig Birchie, he leases out high value sports cars and everything, right? And as a way of washing money, along with other businesses. He's got, I think, a suntan shop and other things, hairdressers and all of that. But he started off like the street gunman that we speak about, moved up through the ranks, and now he's just over 40. And he's the one who's putting these firearms in the hands of people, which we've seen the devastating consequences. And again, you talk about the Speak Crew. There's a direct connection with the Speak Crew and one of the murders that happened in the summer.